In the defense last night on Fox News of pro-lifers, their attempted defense on Fox News of all of those who hate abortion in a different way, perhaps, than the man who shot up the Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado Springs, but just as fervently hate it, few were as defensive as Bill O'Reilly. And so Jared Jackson has pulled both footage from last night on his show. Understand, this is after the shooting, the language that you're going to hear, and some of the things that he said historically about this issue and related issues. So he doesn't believe that he was wrong in the way that he characterized Planned Parenthood or their business practices, and you're going to see that in this video.
Planned Parenthood officials are blaming the killings on harsh criticism directed at the organization after undercover videotapes exposed the sales of aborted baby body parts.
We've experienced so much hateful language, hateful speech. Such a negative environment has been created around the work that Planned Parenthood does, around the idea of safe and legal abortion. And we've seen that across the country from all sorts of speakers in the last few months.
Now, what Ms. Coward does not say is that Planned Parenthood is in the baby body parts business and deserves much of the harsh criticism directed toward it.
That is amazing.
He continues.
That's after the shooting.
He continues. He's defiant. He doesn't care. He cares about life so much that he's going to continue the same rhetoric that leads to the kind of violence that we've been seeing, right? And he continues to lie about what Planned Parenthood does. Planned Parenthood does not sell baby parts. It doesn't sell baby parts, you fucking piece of shit liar. Stop fucking lying about it. It drives me crazy. You want to know what else he said? Let me read you a quote, okay? This is from the November 30th edition of Fox News' O'Reilly Factor, okay? Planned Parenthood is in the baby parts business and deserves much of the harsh criticism directed toward it. The situation is reminiscent of the assassination in 2009 of Dr. George Tiller, a late-term abortionist in Kansas, okay? Here's what he continued to say. For $5,000, Tiller would terminate any pregnancy for any reason. He was nicknamed Tiller the Baby Killer. He was killed because of people like you, Bill O'Reilly. First of all, completely lied about Tiller. Tiller practiced late-term abortions in Kansas. Kansas has very strict laws when it comes to abortion, as you can imagine, especially at that time. The only way that he could legally do a late-term abortion is if the fetus had severe abnormalities or if the fetus was causing harm or serious risk of the woman, right? By the way, the woman would have to obtain letters from 2 different doctors to prove that she was in danger in order for Tiller to carry out that late-term abortion. But Bill O'Reilly doesn't report that. He lies. He lies over and over again and makes it seem like, oh, you know, this guy, he was killing viable babies. That's what he was doing. And then someone went out there and freaking killed him, shot him to death, okay? So the fact that Bill O'Reilly is defiant on this issue and refuses to accept the fact that his rhetoric is violent and it leads to death shows you what a hypocrite he is when it comes to his pro-life stance. He's not pro-life. He's about controlling women. He's about feeding into this exploitation of abortion by politicians. And that's all it really is. He's a terrible person. Bill O'Reilly is a terrible person. And he has blood on his hands. I'm going to be absolutely clear about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, even if he thought, and it seems crazy, but even if he thought that saying the baby body parts business over and over for months wasn't responsible for this guy going in and shooting up the place and then saying no more baby body parts, even if you thought that, maybe the next time you broadcast, you wouldn't repeatedly use the term baby body parts business over and over and over. That was what the terrorist said. You're using the language of a terrorist on the first broadcast you did after the shooting. That's the ramblings of a madman you're seeing there. Now, I know he'll say it's not him, it's Talking Points Memo. It's this disembodied version of himself. But that's crazy. And then to feel the need to remind people of the other time you were closely linked to the death of a... And you're going to see, we're going to show you a little bit of the video of him talking about Tiller. But when you listen to this, he talks about, he just says, and then he was assassinated, and then he goes on with the paragraph. He feels no remorse whatsoever that a doctor that he had ranted about, and he says he was nicknamed Tiller the Baby Killer.
You're the one who gave him that nickname.
You nicknamed him Tiller the Baby Killer. That's insanity. But, okay, I'm going to compose myself as you watch this video. Here is where he's talking about both of those things.
The big picture is the assassin Rhetoric and the Colorado killer represent their own sick selves, nothing more. Same thing with the murder of 9-year-old Tayshawn Lee. in Chicago, who was gunned down on the street because his father is allegedly in a gang. 27-year-old Corey Morgan charged with first-degree murder. 22-year-old Kevin Edwards being sought for killing Tayshaun. No matter what the circumstance, it would be wrong to demonize all young black inner-city men for Tayshaun's murder. It is exclusively on the killers and no one else. It is long past time that political zealots stop using heinous crimes to advance their ideology.
Or perhaps to stop advancing their ideology even at the risk of getting heinous killers to go and do the sort of thing that they did there. So he says there, it would be wrong to demonize all young black men. For examples of people demonizing all young black men, we turn to Bill O'Reilly.
Violent crime generated by African Americans is an enormous social problem. In Indianapolis, 2 men, Larry Taylor, Jalen Watson, charged with murdering 28-year-old Amanda Blackburn, the pregnant wife of a pastor. The solution to the epidemic of violent crime in poor black neighborhoods is to actively discourage pregnancies out of marriage. But there are problems in the African American precincts, especially in the inner city. However, the problems have little to do with white people, rather a corrosive culture.
And I couldn't get over the fact that there was no difference between Sylvia's restaurant and any other restaurant in New York City. I mean, it was exactly the same, even though it's run by blacks, primarily black patronship.
African American young males, I think it's between 15 and 24, commit way out of proportion crime to every other group in America.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's a fact. That the African American community is being devastated by the collapse of the family. Violent crimes largely committed by young black men. Young black men commit homicides at a rate 10 times greater than whites and Hispanics combined.
Listen to me. You got to get where they live, all right? They had idolized these guys with the hats on backwards and the terrible rap lyrics and a drug and all of that.
They're angry they didn't have a family and their father abandoned them and all of that. White, where the reality is that young black men are doing far more damage than the police in Chicago. We have a case there now.
Right.
The police in Minneapolis. When was the last time you saw a public service ad telling young black girls to avoid becoming pregnant?
It's these gangster rappers, it's the athletes, it's the tattoo guys. You got to get them in there to tell these kids that you got to stop the destructive behavior. You're going to wind up in a morgue or in prison.
There wasn't one person in Sylvia's who was screaming, MFer, I want more iced tea.
What did the race hustlers and limousine liberals yell about? The number of black men in prison for selling drugs. Oh, it's so unfair. It's a nonviolent crime. And blacks are targeted. That is one of the biggest lies in the history of this country. Because it is racial profiling, but it's really criminal profiling.
I agree with Bill O'Reilly. Implicating all young black men is an awful thing to do, and I think that we can severely cut down on the amount of it going on TV if Bill O'Reilly would simply cancel his show.
He is a virus that has infected the news world. And unfortunately, there are some people, a huge chunk of his audience, who watch his show and they think that he's reporting facts and they think that he's reporting news. All this man does is incite violence. And if you don't believe it, there's anecdotal evidence right in front of you right now. He is definitely inciting violence on my part because I have very, very terrible thoughts about him when I see mashups like that and when I hear him lying about organizations that are providing so many critical health services to men and women alike. Okay, I know that when we talk about Planned Parenthood, it's often very female-centered, but it offers so many services to men and women, STD tests, cancer screenings. Recently, I had a health scare, and I went to a conventional doctor, a gynecologist for it, and it cost me over $1,000. And then later on I researched and I found out I could have gone to Planned Parenthood and had the services for much less. And it's just, it drives me insane to see the demonization of an organization that's so important in this country and the demonization of minorities. And it's led to so many discriminatory policies in the country, so much hate and division in the country. He's a virus. Bill O'Reilly is nothing more than a disgusting virus.
Young black men, young black... I mean, look, that montage was 2 minutes and 25 seconds long. the reason it wasn't 6 months long was because we had to eventually film the show. But JR could have just culled at random clips from his show and would have come across much the same language. And I agree with you totally. For some reason, we decide to focus almost entirely on women when talking about Planned Parenthood. But not only do they offer services directly to men, but in almost every case, the services they provide to women also provide a service to men.
Exactly.
If women are being protected from getting STDs or are getting cures for their STDs, many of them would be then potentially giving them to men. In almost every case where there's an abortion, where someone decides that they don't want to bring up a child, there's a man to go along with that woman in almost every case, who in many of those cases was involved in the decision to have the abortion. Now we put all of the guilt and the social censure on women for some reason, but men are involved in many of those decisions as well. Yeah, look, so I very much liked that last night on Larry Wilmore's show, he was willing to say that he doesn't feel uncomfortable putting at least some of the blame on Fox News. He didn't say O'Reilly specifically, but he didn't go far enough. Thankfully, you did on this show. O'Reilly, more than any of the other hosts, does have blood on his hands. He has for years. He knows about it to an extent that other hosts perhaps don't. Now, others are trying to catch up now. Tantaros there apparently doesn't care what she says or the effects that it has. But out of all of them, none are more experienced than O'Reilly, and none are more culpable in the crimes that have been committed in their names in the pursuit of their ideology.